So real quick announcement before we start the tier list. My Discord server is now available. It's been in the works for a while, but I was setting it up and now it's ready. I'll put a link for it into the description, and if not, if YouTube acts kind of weird about descriptions again, I will put it in the comments. Anyway, let's get into this. So we're gonna start with the boss that I've never fought because I've never done Fia's questline, and that would unfortunately be Forest X. I do not have any experience with him, however I assume he's not too different from the Air Lightning Dragons. So I'm gonna put him down there. Like I said, I'm not gonna talk out my ass and act like I know what I'm talking about with this boss because I literally have never fought him. Moving on to Godric. So Godric's a bit easy. He's on the easier side, but he is the second boss, to be fair. It's not like you should expect him to be too crazy. I like him. I enjoy him quite a bit, and I do like the cinematics of him. That said, he is so easy, and if it wasn't for him being so easy, he'd probably go a bit higher, but I'm gonna put him in B. Next up, we got Renala. She's also B. She is incredibly easy. She is very memorable, though, and she is kind of enjoyable to fight. I have some issues with her. I definitely like the idea of a chase boss that doesn't actually run away from you. It forces you to run away. I think that's very clever. And there's really not much bad I have to say about her, again, outside of being very easy. Next up, we got Radahn. So Radahn's interesting because if Radahn was as bad as he was when the game first came out, F tier. That said, Radahn has gotten a lot of fixes by FromSoft. He is a lot better than he was before. I love the cinematics of, hey, let's be an army fighting one man. I think that's fucking badass as shit. I also kind of enjoy the fight. I think it's got a little bit of a bad gameplay flow to it, like just a little bit. There's times where like this boss just doesn't feel quite right, like there's something missing. But overall, I do enjoy Radahn. He is a good challenge. I don't know if I'm gonna put him in A or B, honestly. He's definitely not S, he's definitely not C. But the issue I have with him, like I said, is the flow of him feels a little bit bad at times. There's a couple AI patterns he has where the game just feels like it's throwing stuff at you that probably shouldn't, or it's not throwing enough at you. So I think I'm gonna put him in B. We might move him up to A if B gets a little crowded, which it might. Next up, we got Morgott. Okay, I'm gonna put Morgott in A. Again, so Morgott and Margit, much like Radahn, actually were broken when the game first came out. Margit had issues with hit detection, and some of his audio cues were broken. And Morgott, I think he was attacking at a speed that was higher than what he was supposed to be. I can't remember what, there was something wrong with Morgott when the game first came out, but I don't remember what it was. I remember Margit very easily, because Margit, obviously, there was audio cues that were not aligning with his attacks, and there were attacks that were like frames off of what they should be. But, you know, good lads at FromSoftware fixed that right up, so that's not a problem anymore. I do like Morgott a lot. I think Morgott's a very cool fight. I think he's a fantastic milestone in the story, and there's really not too much bad to say about Morgott. He's a very good fight. Next up, we got Mog. So, Mog is interesting because I feel like this is going to be a bit controversial, and I don't think there's any placement I could give him that wouldn't be, because I feel like there's a 50-50 split in the community of everyone hates Mog or everybody loves Mog. I am kind of in the hate camp. The big problem I have with him is the undodgeable attack. I know there are counters to it, I'm aware of that, but I really don't want to have to go out of my way to do a bunch of RPG shit just to fight a boss in a Souls game. Like, it's cool that it's there as an option, but the whole fight should not be determined around, like, if you get hit or not by that blood attack. It's really stupid. Like, I get it, I get that it's thematically fitting. I also find it very weird that, like, the blood boss is weak to blood. Why? Why is he weak to bleed? Like, he's not weak to bleed per se, but the fact that I can proc bleed on him at all is baffling to me. Like, oh yeah, you know, he's just basically the god of blood, but you know, he's pretty vulnerable to bleed, so you know, that's an option. Very strange choice. His arena's kind of good. I kind of like it. I think this is a big problem in Elden Ring, is that the arenas don't really matter towards anything, and we'll get to that in a minute with Malekith, but I don't know. I think like the big problem with Elden Ring's arenas, they're not very memorable. All the older Souls games kind of made their arenas matter. You either use something in the arena to dodge an attack, or you use the arena to heal, or you use the arena to kill the boss. This game, they didn't really play with the arenas too much, and it kind of sucks for it. A lot of the arenas in this game are just wide open fields, or cramped spaces that really don't need to be cramped spaces. But I think Mog is F tier. I know there's gonna be like 50% of people are gonna hate me for this, and 50% of people are gonna continue stroking their egos over this, but it's a weird boss. It's a very split boss, and I'm probably like not the only one who hates him. And next up we got Malenia. So from F tier to S tier, Malenia is fantastic. She is this game's version of Sister Frida or Priscilla, or just name kind of like a slender female, kind of like fast boss. And that's what Malenia kind of is. Mesmer's kind of like that in the DLC, but Mesmer's got I have issues with Mesmer. But we're not talking about the DLC, we're talking about the main game. Melania's fantastic. I've got nothing bad to say about her. And if you can't deal with her, either use summons because the devs do intend you to use them, contrary to popular belief, or don't use summons and rely on things like bleed and rely on things like, I think she's weak to Scarlet Rot, like Radahn is. Not sure about that though. But there's lots of ways around her, and there's lots of ways that you can fire much more efficiently than you probably are if you're struggling with her. And next up we have the truly controversial pick, maybe, I don't know what people think about Malekith actually. Last I checked, people were kind of against him, and I've always been against him since launch day, but I don't like Malekith one bit. He is a Bloodborne boss in a game that has Dark Souls healing, and it does not work. His arena is pointless because you can't use his pillars for cover. He jumps all over the place, which fucks up your camera. And he has the god-awful HP lowering gimmick that they decided was a cool thing to do in this game for some reason. I don't know why they did that. It was really stupid. Yeah, I hate Malekith. I think he's awful. Oh, next up we got the this guy, the weird skeleton scorpion man. Weird boss. Weird boss. I like this boss a lot. It is copy-pasted, unfortunately, and that is a big problem. That said, I mean, he's not a necessary boss, is he? I don't remember him being necessary. I don't know why he's in the main bosses tier list, but there's two of these guys. They're functionally the same. One has more health than the other. That's pretty much it. I'm not the biggest fan of these enemies, but I also don't hate them. That said, they're not my favorite. They are copy-pasted. I'm gonna put them in C. Radagon, great, fantastic. A big criticism I actually have of Elden Ring is that there's not enough slow bosses. Like, slow bosses seem to be a lost art for this game for some reason. Like, all throughout all the other Souls games, with the exception of Bloodborne, which makes sense, Bloodborne was a much faster game. Slow bosses have been a staple in the series, and they've been in literally since Demon Souls. Yet this game only really has Radagon as far as slow bosses go, which is too bad because I think slow boss fights are an art form when done right, and I think Radagon is definitely done right. As for Elden Beast, because he is bundled with him in this tier list, if this was prior to the torrent patch for Elden Beast, I would put both of them down here. No matter how good Radagon is, they would both go down here. But since they added Torrent to Elden Beast, I actually think this is an S tier fight. I think Elden Beast on its own is an A tier fight now that they've added Torrent, but I already thought that Radagon was S. I'm even tempted to create like an S plus tier for this, but I think it doesn't need to go higher than S. Yeah, great boss fight. Really nothing bad to say about it, and I would have had a ton of negative things to say about Elden Beast, but since they've added Torrent to that fight, it has fixed literally all of the problems I had with that fight. Like, every single one has been fixed. It's so nice. Thank you, FromSoft, for finally listening. Took you 2.5 years, but you finally listened at least. Ooh, next up we've got Horlu / Godfrey, S tier. Absolutely S tier. I love this fight. I think it's perfect. Absolutely love Godfrey. We will talk about his Phantom later, and he will not rank nearly as high as Godfrey does, but base Godfrey is based. Next up we got Fire Giant. Okay, so this is going to be another kind of controversial pick, because I'm going to place him higher than most people would. Most people will put him in F. I don't think he's that bad. I think that a lot of people blow him out of proportion because a lot of people are more used to hitting weak points and stuff. And I think when they have to play without weak points, they kind of see the problems with a lot of Elden Ring's bosses, which is the hyper-inflated HP. Fire Giant is a big blob of HP. He's not very threatening. He is very cool. I like him a lot. I think he's badass. I do enjoy the fight quite a bit, except for a few attacks. I think the rolling is very annoying because obviously it's just artificially increasing the length of the fight by making you run after him. I also don't particularly love, as much as I say that people should probably get used to fighting without weak points, I don't love that his weak point is just not an option. It is kind of a fuck up with the design. I'm not a huge fan of it. That said, I do enjoy this fight. It's not that bad despite him being huge. As long as you don't lock on, he's not very difficult. But if you lock on, you activate hard mode, because obviously he's gonna fuck with your camera a ton in lock on. Placiduax. Oh man, where do I put you? I think S. No, you know what? A. I just thought about it. So the thing with Placiduax that is the problem is the lead up to him. Because you have to run from the staircase, down the elevator, past the two dudes, down the cliffs, and then you have to, like, activate the event for him. That is a long fucking setup for one boss if you fuck this up. If you do it in one attempt, it's not that bad, obviously. But I doubt anyone's doing Placiduax in one attempt except for, like, really die-hard Souls players. As for my opinions on him as a boss, he is a big boy, but I don't think that matters too much here. I think it's kind of well done. They don't fuck around with your camera too much in this fight. It is one of my favorite dragons in all of Souls. The one that would top stop him, if not for his absurdly inflated health, would be Midir. Midir's HP is so fucking inflated. If it weren't for that, he'd be my favorite, but I think Placiduous has to take that spot because Placiduous is just fantastic. Placiduous is great. I actually missed him during my first playthrough. I should talk about this because I actually didn't know there was like a cliff section down there. I forget what I was doing. I forget what the reason was that I was back there, but I noticed it the second time I was there. I was like, wait, why is there like a bunch of rocks down here leading to this one strip? And then I realized, oh my god, it's a boss arena. It's kind of funny. Next up, we got Dragonkin. So I don't hate this boss. He's a joke. He is very easy. He is also copy-pasted as shit. There's like 3 or 4 of these guys. I do enjoy the fight though, but I think just off the copy-paste alone and how easy he is, he has to go in F. I'm sorry. I really enjoy him, I do, but he's really not a threat, and he is a copy-pasted enemy. Next up, we got Rykard. I never know where to place him. Rykard is weird. In terms of cinematics, in terms of his side quest that you can do, the alternate way of fighting him, he's great. He's S tier. In terms of gameplay, F. Absolutely F tier. But he's so cool. But he's so bad. But he's so cool. But he's so bad, and that's the problem with Rykard. I never know where to place him, because I feel like no matter where I put him on this tier list, it's wrong. There's no possible way I can tier him properly. I'm actually tempted to make his own separate tier, but I'm gonna stick with the tiers that we have. As much as I would like to place him higher, as much as I think he might belong lower, I'm gonna put him in B. He should be lower because of difficulty, but he should be higher because of cinematics. He's very weird. I don't know. Like I said, I have no idea where to place him. Next up, we got Xerneas. I mean, the Ancestral Beast. Let's be honest, it's Xerneas from Pokemon. F tier. There's 2 of these guys. They're copy-pasted. There's no real difference in their fights. They're both extremely easy fights. They don't really give you anything that interesting for fighting them. It's just, they're pretty bad. There's nothing really that interesting about it. It's cool. It's a cool boss. Like, in terms of presentation, I love the idea that it's just this like gigantic spirit deer that's living underground full of these other spirit animals in harmony until you show up and ruin everything. But my big problem with him is just that he is a really, really underwhelming boss, and there are 2 of them that are identical. Next up, we got Margit. I think Margit is S tier. I think he is the perfect intro to what Elden Ring is. I think he's the perfect first boss of the game. There's really nothing bad to say about him. If I was tiering this way, way back when it came out, he would probably be an F because he was, as I mentioned earlier with Morgott, he was very, very, very broken at the start of the game. I don't know what went wrong with Margit, but he had like desynced attacks, desynced audio. He had a ton of problems with like the way that he moved. He could actually die falling off his cliff in his arena, amusingly enough, before they patched it, which was really funny. That's actually how I killed him the first time. But yeah, no, if it was off like when the game first launched, he'd be an F. But honestly, with all the changes they made, all the patches they've made, he is definitely S tier. Like, without a doubt, he is a perfect intro boss. Oh, now we got the Misbegon, F tier. He's just a normal enemy that they stuck at the very back of the map because they had to put something over there. Redragon, he's awful. He is a camera fucker to an extreme. He loves to spam projectiles, which is fucking annoying. He is not a threat even in the slightest. He's just an annoyance in the way of Renala. I have nothing good to say about this boss. Oh, and on top of all of that, he's copy-pasted as well. There's like at least 2 or 3 other of these, and I cannot understand why they did this. Was it really necessary to stretch out the Academy just that much more that you had to put this guy in there? Really? He feels so pointless, and I really, really dislike him. We got the Gargoyles, so much like Dragonkin, except much more difficult than Dragonkin. Unfortunately, the Gargoyles are copy-pasted everywhere. There's 2 of them you find in Arena that is blocking, what is it, Noxella? I'm trying to remember what the hidden city is that you can only get by fighting these guys. There is one outside of Lindell. There's one in the snowfields outside of the elevator. There is one outside of where Malekith is in the overworld. There's a lot of these guys, and they're all pretty meh. They're good fights, but like when they're everywhere, like I think the only thing more copy-pasted than the Gargoyles might be the dragons, and that's kind of sad, so yeah. Oh, next we got the Foreskin Noble and the Foreskin Apostle. So I like these guys individually. I will get into the Foreskin Duo in a minute because I fucking hate them. But as for Apostle and Noble, I think on their own, they're perfectly fine fights. I think they're more than fine. I don't really have any issues in terms of them being individuals, but when you put them together, they are the fucking most annoying thing in the entire series. Which gets us to the one pick I know nobody will disagree with me on, because everybody hates this fight. It is like the most hated fight in the series. It is just 2 of these guys together. There is no thought put into them at all. Their arena is pointless. They put like these pillars in the way, but they don't protect you against anything. And like the arena is super cramped for like a boss fight that consists of 2 of these guys. They were super aggressive prior to the update that they did before Shadow of the Erdtree. There's really nothing good to say about them. They just, again, they're much like Redragon. They just kind of pad out Fair Missoula, like to just stop you from getting to Malekith and Blizziduax. It's really stupid. I don't like it at all. Next up, we got Makar. So Makar is great. I like the magma worms a lot, but unfortunately, again, they are copy-pasted to death. There's at least 4 of these I can think of, because there's one in the snowfield, there's one in the mines, there's one in a mine somewhere that I think gives you a bell bearing or something, and then there's one in the Volcano Manor. And unfortunately, because they're so copy-pasted, I'm gonna put them in F. I do like this fight a lot. I think it's a fun fight, but dear God, they just shove these guys fucking everywhere. Next up, we got Elmer. He is so fucking forgettable. Oh my God, he is forgettable. He's not a bad fight. There are a couple problems I have with him. A lot of his attacks have startups that look very similar to one another, which kind of makes him annoying to fight. He is much like Bale in that he is definitely a scripted fight where you're supposed to have an NPC with you. In this case, it's Patches. In the case of Bale, it's Igon. I'm not a huge fan of these kind of like scripted fights. I know it sounds kind of stupid considering what I said about Radahn, but Radahn's different because it's like the idea of an army versus one fucking psycho. But I'm not a huge fan of this fight. It's not even that difficult. Like, he's never one of those bosses in this game that you can just hit flinch to death. But, like, he's just kind of forgettable. He's, like, shoved to the very end of the map. Actually, that reminds me, there's an air magma worm over by where he is. I just remembered that. So there's actually 5 of these guys. But no, yeah, Briar's mid. He's very mid. I wish I could like him more. I really wish they'd done something more with him. Loretta, also C tier. Different reasons, though. She's just too easy. I don't think she's bad per se. I wouldn't say anything in C or higher is bad. I'd only say anything in F is terrible, but she's just kind of forgettable. Like, honestly, I always forget when I go to the Helig tree until I get right outside her boss arena that she's even there. Next up, we have Gideon. So he's going in B tier. The reason is any Souls game that can make an NPC memorable to me instantly earns you at least C tier. And the fact that Gideon is actually a pretty good fight makes him B tier. I would put him higher, but it's like he is an NPC, let's be honest. Next up, we got Godfrey, F. So this is a case of a boss that's hilariously easy because he is simply too stupid to fight you properly. So I had to fight this guy the hard way on stream because obviously I had time constraints. I couldn't just abuse his AI. But Godfrey has the most abusable AI possibly in the entire Souls series. All you do in this fight is you trick him into throwing his axe from a distance, wait for him to get close, and then hit him like 2 or 3 times, repeat the cycle, and that's how you beat him. You can do it without taking damage even once. It's a joke. I wish this fight were better. I really do. Especially since, like, the actual main Godfrey fight is so fucking good. This one is terrible. It's just, it's so exploitable. It's so boring. I really don't like it. I wish it wasn't there. It even kind of kills the pacing heading up to Morgott. Like, I really don't think he was necessary. Again, he kind of falls in the same category as, like, Redragon and the Foreskin duo, because the Foreskin duo and Redragon are the same way. They're just, like, thrown in randomly to make the area last longer than it needs to. So yeah, F tier. So anyway, that's the tier list. Tell me what you think in the comments, and next time.